What is up, everybody? It is Wicked Weekend, Gladiator 2, Wicked opening weekend. I've gotten the chance to see Gladiator 2 on Saturday, maybe it was, or no, I think it was, it was Saturday. So I had the chance to see this movie on Saturday. Have not got to see Wicked yet, but I have gotten to see Gladiator 2. And being a big fan of the first Gladiator movie, I of course had to check it out. I am actually named after Gladiator, Maximus, so of course had to go definitely see it, see what my boy Maximus is doing in this one. He's dead, if any of you guys were wondering. Going to see this movie, really fun. They got the new Coliseum popcorn bucket, which really cool thing about this is, once scanned, there was a QR code in here. I took it out because obviously popcorn had to go in here. But once scanned, there was like this cool effect that I'll place here that like shows like the gladiators fighting, which is crazy. The future popcorn buckets. I got this because I work at the movie theater. I got it cheaper, so for me it was only $11, but I think for most it's like around $30. We got this cool Gladiator thumb where you can do the thumbs up, thumbs down, which is iconic. Which, you know, the gods have spoken, which I find to be hilarious in this movie. The gods have spoken! And then, of course, I got the Gladiator 2 poster behind me. But without further ado, let's get into this review. So for now, we're going to do some non-spoiler thoughts on the film. But going into this movie, of course, I didn't know if this movie was going to live up to the hype of the first one. Obviously, it's Ridley Scott, and lately his movies haven't been that great. Looking at, like, Napoleon, for example. Napoleon, for me, was terrible, or, like, Robin Hood. Hated those two movies. I was really looking forward to Napoleon last year. It was actually one of my most anticipated movies of the year. But it was obviously garbage. Like, it was awful. And that's why I was kind of scared to go see this, because this movie is obviously 24 years after the first one. The first one came out in the year 2000. It's 2024. 24 years later, legacy sequels normally don't do that well. But who knows? Lately this year, or in the past few years, legacy sequels have been doing great, like Avatar, Gladiator 2, Beetlejuice. You know, so sometimes they get it right, sometimes they get it wrong. So I was really excited to go see this. And, you know, the cast is stacked. You got Denzel Washington in there. Paul Mescal playing, of course, the main character. You got the General Pedro Pascal. A great, amazing lineup. With the returning star from the first one, Connie. Oh my gosh, forgive me. It's her. Wait, she's on the poster. Connie Nielsen. I believe that's how you say it. I'm sorry, I probably butchered that. But she's in this, obviously, playing Paul Mescal's mother in this. Obviously, they show that in the trailer. But this movie, for me, I went into this going like, all right, it's probably not going to be that great. It's probably going to just be okay. I was wrong. I was so wrong, and I'm so happy to be wrong. This movie was amazing. Everything that I thought, doubts-wise, opposite. This movie was great. Starting off with the beginning of the movie, opening film, it started off pretty odd. Now, like, the first Gladiator movie, I love the visual effects of that. I love the visuals, like, and I love how, like, it kind of, they have, like, all these extras that make it feel like a battle and stuff, and they don't do movies like that anymore. This movie opened up with that, and also opened up with, like, a kind of a refresh of what happens in the first movie with, like, this painting. That was really cool. But then they, like, have, like, this giant war scene. And I will say, you know, the tragic story that happens to our character in this movie, Paul Mescal's character, is definitely early on compared to, like, Maximus within the first Gladiator. But, like, you don't really... The problem with this movie is, the only problem for me, is that you don't really care about his struggle to be the gladiator. But I think the whole other storyline with, like, Denzel Washington in this movie is perfect. So, like, of course, the first Gladiator movie, it's a great revenge story. This movie, on the other hand, I don't see a revenge. I don't get no revenge, but instead I get, like, overtaking an empire type of feel to this. Especially since, like, they kind of target, like, the general to be, like, this, Pedro Pascal's character to be, like, this bad person. When in reality, he's really not. Like, they kind of make the villain of this movie not. And then there's, like, a whole dynamic between, like, with Denzel Washington's character, which he was a great character, and his whole character development did not see coming. They did not show that in the trailers, what he becomes and everything. And then there's of course the two emperors, not Joaquin Phoenix, Joseph Quinn, and I'm not familiar with the other man in this, but they're twins, and they are like the new emperors, and obviously they're Dumb and Dumber, like they're Tweedledee Tweedledum. But man, he does that one line. I've been saying that ever since. Like, that's the new What a Wonderful Day. Like, those have such the same energy for me. I just love how movies nowadays have one-liners that I don't think are going to become, like, popular lines, but I wish that they would. Like, what a wonderful day, and the gods have spoken. Dude, those need to become instant iconic lines for me. Like, those are my new iconic lines growing up. But literally, this movie, like, the way it's visually presented, everything like that, the plot layout, like, because this movie's also 2 hours and 20 minutes, and within the first hour, I was like, okay, it's picking up, it's a little slow, but by the end, I was shocked. And of course, in the trailer, we got to see, like, you know, the Coliseum's full of water, and there's sharks, and obviously it looks like, all right, this kind of looks like a little bit of a CGI mess. What's going on here? The movie, it looks great. It looks perfect. Like, you can't even tell that, like, the first movie feels like it's like takes place in, of course, 180. This feels like it takes place in 180, but it just feels more epic. Like, it feels like, wow. Like, it feels like a battle epic story, where the first one felt like a great revenge story. That's what I said. Like, the first one felt like a revenge. This feels like a war. Now, before I get into spoiler territory, I want to give my rating system. So, for plot and visuals, both of them 10 out of 10s. Amazing plot. Even though people say that this is kind of the same plot as the first movie, I heavily disagree. I think the plot's different. I think they took a different approach, and I love it for that. Let's go. Sorry, just got a notification. The Seattle Seahawks beat the Arizona Cardinals. Let's go. People say it's the same plot. I think it's a little bit different, and I kind of like it for that. And visually, it looks so visually different from the first movie, but also amazing like the first movie. I think this movie looks visually great, and I think the plot's great. For acting and soundtrack, I'm giving a 9, soundtrack an 8. These are the only two, like, pretty much, like, lowest of the bunch. Acting is a 9 out of 10. The acting's great in here, and I think the best performance is definitely Denzel Washington, and I honestly think he can get an Oscar nomination for this, for Best Supporting Actor. Nothing wrong with Paul Mescal, nothing wrong with Pedro Pascal. There's just nothing that's too amazing, and I think that's the main thing that's missing from The Gladiator, is obviously Russell Crowe playing Maximus was just a heavy hit that was needed for the Gladiator franchise, or the Gladiator movie, and of course, he's dead. And same with Joaquin Phoenix. They were both, Joaquin Phoenix was such an amazing villain, and Russell Crowe played such an amazing hero as Maximus, that it's kind of hard to live up to the hype of those, so that's why it's a 9. For soundtrack, the score is okay, but that's about it. There's really nothing else. And then, of course, we got that song from the trailer, which was great. But yeah, the soundtrack's pretty good, and I really like it. Like, meaning, like, the score, it's really good. And the score from the first Gladiator movie is pretty much Pirates of the Caribbean. Prove me wrong. For enjoyment, and then intro and ending. Enjoyment, I'm giving it a 10. Intro 9, ending 10. I very much enjoyed this movie. I think this movie was one of the best movies of the year, for sure, without a doubt. And then for the intro, 9 out of 10. Like I said, it starts off a little slow, but once you get to that ending, the ending, 10 out of 10. It's a great ending. So overall, I'm giving this movie a 96 out of 100. The second movie of the year to get a 10 out of 10 rating. Obviously, this is under challengers for me, right above Trap. So yeah, this is the top 3 of the year, and surprisingly, I was not expecting this movie to be up there. And I don't think Wicked's going to be up here for sure. I thought Wicked was going to be better than Gladiator 3 or Gladiator 2, but now I'm thinking Gladiator 2 might be the best out of Wicked for me. And it honestly could be the best movie of the year, but challengers I loved. So, yeah, Gladiator 2 was a very surprise for me, because I wasn't expecting it to be this great. I was expecting it to be just, you know, an 8 out of 10. But this is a clear 10 out of 10 for me. And now let's get into spoilers. Okay, so spoiler territory here. Obviously, this is Lucius or Lucius. I forget how you say his name. You know, he ran away because once Joaquin Phoenix died, he was the next in kin. He was next to be the emperor. Or not next in kin, next to be the emperor. And so his life was on the line. So, of course, his mother sent him away. And he grew up, got a wife, and he's now in his late 20s, almost 30s. And the empire, the Roman Empire, kind of took that colony away from them, and now they're kind of slaves to the Roman Empire. And who led that battle but the general, which is what Maximus was, which I loved. And I was like, wow, this is actually the general. And he seemed like, obviously he was killing people, but so did Maximus. And then he shoots an arrow into the wife, because obviously the wife shoots an arrow into one of the generals. That's what happens in war. Unfortunately, though, the only thing that's what I said, like, what my biggest gripe with this movie, like, the difference is with the whole, like, tragedy. The wife of Pedro Pascal, or Paul Mescal's character, is they were both in the war. So, like, they both had a chance at dying, and you can't really, like, obviously, like, you're gonna be mad. Like, I know I would be mad. Like, anyone's gonna be mad, but, like, that's what happens in war. And, like, the thing is, what was different is, in the first Gladiator movie, Maximus's wife and son were just innocent farmers. Like, Maximus didn't even want to be in war. He just wanted to farm, and they slaughtered his wife and his child because they just did that just to do it, to mess with Maximus, even though they thought Maximus was dead. So that's the only difference with it. Like, you can't really, like, I feel bad for him, but, like, I don't feel as bad for him as I did for Maximus. Like, that was brutal. And that's why I said that's a way more of an epic revenge story. That and John Wick are the two best revenge stories in my opinion. This is a great war story, because leading in, of course, Paul Mescal, like, you know, he fights. And I think the fighting sequences in this way better than the first movie. Like, the way, like, he uses swords and everything on people, amazing. The choreography for fighting is great. And then seeing Denzel be like this kind of funny guy who's, like, whimsical and is like the slave leader kind of, but, like, we saw that in the first Gladiator movie. You're like, okay, maybe he's gonna help him, and he kind of does. He works his way up, but then in the background, he's kind of like working with the emperors and stuff, and you're like, this is weird. This is a little interesting. And then by the end of the movie, he kills the one twin to help the other twin kill Joseph Quinn, and then by doing that, he kills the other twin. So now he's the emperor type of thing, and you're like, whoa. What? And so, like, he kind of leads this ladder where he's kind of the main villain. But then, obviously, Paul Mescal, before this, Paul Mescal wants to go against the general. That's the whole point. But then you realize, like, he starts to realize, wait, this is my mom's new husband, because Pedro Pascal is now married to Paul Mescal's mother in this movie, or character's mother. And he kind of, like, the one person I feel bad for, like, when they're fighting, is, of course, Paul Mescal's mother, or Paul Mescal's character's mother, because either way, she's losing someone. She's either losing her child or losing her new husband. And it's like, this is nuts to me. And I feel terrible. Like, you gotta feel bad. There's no doubt in that. But then, of course, we see the general dies, but not by Paul Mescal. Paul Mescal, like, goes like, I don't want to kill you anymore. Like, I'm sorry. Let's forgive each other. But then they do the gods have spoken thing, and they shoot him to death with arrows. And then all of a sudden you see the girl gets an arrow through her, because they have plans to kind of make the dream of Rome a republic again. And we see that she dies. A bunch of other people die, and then there's kind of like this whole revolution. And that's where I was like, this is completely different from the first movie. Because the first movie, it was just Maximus versus Joaquin Phoenix. This is all of Rome versus the Empire. And that's what I love. I love seeing that. And of course, I love the first Gladiator movie a lot more than this. But it was just so fascinating and interesting to see, like, that whole dynamic between Rome and its, like, civilians. Or Rome, yeah, basically the Rome government and its civilians. And just seeing Paul Mescal slowly work his way up, and then Also, Denzel worked his way up when you're not really, like when you kind of trust Denzel. Like I was trusting Denzel, and I was like, wow, never trusting Denzel. And then seeing them fight at the end, it was just a great time. I'm excited to see Gladiator 3 because that's clearly in the works. And hopefully it's just as good as Gladiator 1 and 2, because if so, then that's a great trilogy. But I don't know. Like, after seeing this one, I'm like, I don't know where you can go with it. And but also I said that with the first one. I didn't know where you can go with the first one, but clearly Ridley Scott has something planned. And if it went this route, maybe it could be good. But also Gladiator 3 coming out with Paul Mescal in it in a few years. They had 24 years to make this perfect. Do they have more years to make this third one great? Who knows? But with all that being said, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to be watching the LA trip coming up. I'm leaving in way less than a week on Friday. So yeah, with all that being said, thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure you like it. If you really liked it, make sure you subscribe. And let me know what you guys thought on Gladiator 2. With all that being said, cheers it out. Peace.